Martha Krejci. It's like great chi. You have great chi. I met this marvelous woman many years ago. We were actually at an event at a conference, and we were at, I think it was the sushi restaurant where someone brought her along. And here she is just quietly like eating her little sushi. And I kept asking questions about different things with social media, what's working now. And all of a sudden she would pipe up and say things. And I look at her on Instagram and I'm like, okay, dude, you over here, shut up. I want to hear what this lady has to say. She's an 8-figure business owner, just to introduce her to my fans and followers and friends and groups. 8-figure business owner. You heard that right. She has sold tens of thousands of courses online, has tens of thousands of clients online, helps business owners all over the world grow their businesses online. Primarily, I think her greatest forte is not only social media, but I talked about the persona method, and she's really using AI to its fullest in a way that I've never seen before. And no one else is doing this. I think a lot of people are trying to copy her, but they're not doing it yet. So I'm bringing her on. We were chatting this morning and this past week about a lot of the different things she's doing. And a couple months ago, I think it was, she was hitting millions and millions and millions of views, and it just kept going viral with these videos. And she's not done it just once. It's hit again and again and again. So once someone finds a formula like that, there are things you can break down. So Martha has agreed for me to pick her brain and share her secrets and her memes, how she's using AI, but also how she's using the human element as well. The best part of this is that she is the ultimate AI and Chill podcast guest, because she's doing all of this, traveling the world as a speaker while still homeschooling her daughter, who is marvelous.
Yeah.
And I think she's the only badass boss speaker that gets on stage, literally AI and chilling, because she's on stage as a speaker in her slippers. So welcome, Martha Krejci, to the stage. Is this
Yeah.
is this the best stage when you can just perform and broadcast from your home?
Yeah. Listen, I got my Chick-fil-A. I got my little Nito ice cube and slippers on, and it just doesn't get much better than this, right? You add a ring light and we're just good. We're good.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I like about what you teach your business owners is not to complicate things, keep
Yeah.
it simple, and yet follow a formula that works. And I don't think, I mean, I think we've talked over the past year how you have probably forgotten more in social media than most people know. And I'm going to say most experts know, and gurus. And yes, I'm using air quotes for anyone listening to just audio. But this is a woman who knows her stuff. So tell me a little bit. One of the ones that I loved and that we were all talking about and raving about on social, and it was very relatable. And I think it was just being a busy mom, crazy. So talk a little bit about the meme, and was it Instagram? What was the channel that you used that just got millions? And then every day it was like another million, another million, another million.
Yeah. There are a few around mom topics because like for my brand, I don't say everybody do, the mom topic, only do it if it actually makes sense for you. Right. But,
Mhm.
when if you can hit that mom vein, you know what I'm saying? That thing where you're like, doggone it, that happens to me too. That's that's when you have that moment of, it's the moment of being seen, right?
Mhm.
It's the moment of feeling like I'm not crazy. I think a lot of us
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
actually self-diagnosed as maybe autistic or having ADHD with reels, because it's those micro moments of, wait, not everybody does that, or not everybody, and
Mhm.
and it's a really cool thing because whenever you give somebody those micro moments of realizing that they're not alone, and that these goofball things that happen in their world or happen in their life are happening in other people's lives as well.
Mhm.
Whenever you
Mhm.
do that, you give them a moment to relax and to chill and to just to know that they're normal. And that's, I mean,
Mhm.
come on, in this world, can we all just take a deep breath? Can we
Mhm.
just take a deep breath and know that there's other people like us, and just to be able to relax in it all? And I think ultimately, those reels that have just gone stupid viral are those, they tap that vein. They tap
Mhm.
the vein of of humanity, and sometimes they look real cheesy and they look real stupid. I don't care. Because ultimately my goal with those is for people to feel seen, heard, and understood in
Mm,
some way. And then you start to gain followers from that, which is
mhm.
why, you need to make sure that the reels are in relation with what you do or who your audience is in some capacity. But yeah, that's the meat and potatoes behind it, really.
Yeah, I think you hit on the nerve of being so relatable in that one particular reel. And again, if anyone's her name is right there, go to YouTube, follow her YouTube, go to Instagram to follow her and check out her reels. Again, legit gets a lot of views, almost effortlessly at this point. Again, it's Martha Krejci, Krejci, and you're pretty much Martha Krejci everywhere, right? Instagram,
Yeah.
YouTube. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So, by the way,
Yeah.
that's another important thing is being the same name everywhere as much as you can. Some of the channels you might have to add something. Um, a lot of times company names will tell them to put the in front of it, or people will put official if their name is a very common name. So again, we hit on the relatable thing. A couple other things too. Reaction videos. What do you think about reaction videos online? Do you think people should do them, not do them? And again, what why
Yeah.
do people use them?
I've done a few of them. I wish I did more of them. I actually want to do more of them. Um, I think that they're great because, well, here's the question you want to ask yourself first. If you should do them, right? So the only reason you would do a reaction video is if you actually want to connect with your person. So if you want to connect with your people, I would suggest doing a reaction video. People have, opinions about this or that and whatever. And are they valid? I don't even know. But whenever it comes to reaction videos, it's almost like, you get to sit there with somebody on the couch because they're sitting on the couch or on the toilet or wherever, right? But they're sitting somewhere, and they're just watching this video, and you get to watch it with them, and then you get to share that moment with them. So again, if we go back to what I just said a second ago about people feeling seen, heard, and understood, if somebody else is having a reaction that you're having as well, right? Then now you've got a Me Too moment, but not that kind of Me Too moment,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah. The
like
good kind.
the
Yeah,
kind, right? The good
yeah,
kind. And so,
yeah.
so it's a good thing to do. It's always a good thing,
Mhm.
to find alignment with who your audience is. I know that one of my favorite videos, it was a reaction video to somebody getting a hairdo. I don't remember the specifics of it, but I remember watching that reaction video. It must have been 20 times over
Mhm,
and over again. And
mhm.
just, how sometimes you're laughing so hard, one eye closes and you can't even open this eyeball. Like it's just, it's a whole it's like a squish and everything, but, I was laughing and then you start squealing and then, like, you don't anyway, it just
Yep.
got me, and anything in this world that can make you feel that
Mhm.
level of good. I read stats. I'm just kind of a big nerd, but I read stats a lot, and, uh I was reading a stat about how many times kids laugh a day, right? And then right before we came on here, I heard my 10-year-old belly laugh, just a free flowing belly laugh,
Mhm,
just
mhm.
down the hall, which I just love. But um, so kids do that however many times a day. And then adults do it like a 1%
Mm,
of what
mhm,
kids do. And it's just because, over time we can create many excuses and whatever. But ultimately, if something is getting you to that point, if you can get someone, that's it. If you can get somebody to that point where they are laughing so hard, where they're just like squealing, where they're like, where that level of joy is entering their body, do that. I
mhm,
mean,
mhm.
that's an alignment with your audience. They are never going to forget, the whole Maya Angelou, the way you make them feel, right? And
Yep.
that's it's
Mhm.
foundational.
Yeah. And it's funny when you did the twitching thing, I think that was one of the ones, I think it was like a model or a celebrity on the red carpet. And like, it was
Yeah,
like someone
her
said, and then in
eyes.
the comments, that's the best part is people were like theorizing why it was
Yeah.
like, oh, it was a magnetic eyelash, that was like stuck. But it was like, you were like, how moms feel after a long day. I don't remember like even the
Yes.
thing, but it was kind of like, we all
Yeah.
can relate to being just stressed out, overworked, and also just like all the things women have to do to just, present instead of just throw a baseball cap on like guys do. So many women
Yeah.
were commenting, or they were actually giving a reason why it was happening, like
Yeah.
scientifically or the actual facts. So it was great. You had debates in the comments, and it was so much engagement. So I think that's the other secret too of going viral. And you had it all. But yeah, like, do you remember that post? Because
Yes,
you've
it
had
was
many that
Katy
have gone
Perry.
and
It
hit.
was the Katy Perry one,
Yes,
and
yes.
yeah, that was a few months ago now, but it was, that was the first one, and I think that one only I think maybe we hit 10,000,000 with that one, but,
Did she say only? You gotta love that. Only 10,000,000 on that one. I love it. Yep, yep.
but
Yeah.
it was yeah, her eyelid went it was, like, during a show, and she, like, could not and then she did this, and then it opened up, and she kinda looked like a robot and stuff, and so, that you when you can touch on stuff like that, you know that there's gonna be lots of chatter about what that's
Mhm,
about and that sort of thing, but I didn't just share that. I knew I would be able to get engagement if I just shared the video, but
mhm.
it was the video and the caption, right? And the
Yes, yes.
caption was about, just trying to pull it together in the grocery store or something like that, or in the grocery aisle, just trying to like get your stuff together, and then our eye is all crazy. But it's yeah, it's those moments where we're just like, yeah, I've had a rough mom life,
Mhm.
today,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
yeah, so that's the whole thing behind it.
I think you just nailed it too, is getting the caption with the meme, because I've seen people repeat or copy, and there's nothing wrong with this, right? Or again,
Right.
like doing a reaction video or sharing something that went viral and you share it to yours. But I think the magic of yours was getting the meme and the caption with it. And that's the part that makes it original. And I don't think that's what people understand. I know you get this question of what type of music and what about copyright? And we're actually going to get into that a little bit too, especially since like TikTok was based off Musically and it was all based on the earworm of music. We're going to dig into that of like kind of why trending music is one of the best things to use, and how the copyright or Creative Commons license works. And that's really when YouTube first came out. You remember it came out, and it was this whole concept of Creative Commons that was introduced to the lexicon, and everyone was just like, oh, you mean you can actually use other people's content, other people's music? Yes, or yes, but
Yes,
there
but
are
yeah,
ways to make it your own. And the way you did is the caption, right? So it's Katy
yes,
Perry and that's her content, but your caption is what made it an original. And that's what makes you a content creator. And for business owners everywhere, that's really what you're doing, is you're creating content for the channel that you're on, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Threads, on and on and on, right?
yeah, yeah.
So it really depends. So, yeah, talk a little bit about that. Like, what is Creative Commons for the person that doesn't know how they are allowed to use other people's content and say copywritten content of celebrities? Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah. So it basically what you're able to do is you're able to grab these like little clips of things. You're it's easier to say what you're not able to do, honestly, but
Mhm. And that's
you
fine
really just
too.
kind of yeah. So you can't just download somebody's stuff and put it up there and then say that it's
Mhm.
yours and then move on with it. What you do is you create sort of a and I think the best way to think about it is you're treating it as a multimedia piece of art, really,
Mm.
because you're mixing different pieces
Yeah.
together. And
Yeah.
so when I saw something that was trending, when I saw Katy Perry, yeah, Katy Perry's always going to trend anyway, but
Yeah. Yeah.
specifically that clip, whenever I saw that that was trending, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Also, I think I felt like that before, and
Mm.
then
Mhm.
just kind of thinking of what the copy would be on that, but to be able to mix those things together, that's that like what you said, that's where you
Mhm.
now are creating an original. So
Mhm. Let's talk about music too, right? Like, why is it that TikTok, and do you use TikTok? And why is it that it's the trending music ones that often will go and get way more views than if you just use your own original? Because I think in the beginning, I had clients going, "Here, I bought this music and I bought this music, use this." And we're like, "No, we're going to scratch all of those rules."
Yeah.
TikTok has changed the game. So talk a little bit about that and how you use trending music as well.
Yeah. I don't post to TikTok a whole lot, actually.
Mhm, mhm.
I think I think my team after it's like an afterthought that we post to TikTok. So we
Well, we
don't
just
post with
throw it up
intent.
there. Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
say that. But that also there's a lesson in that. Our
Mhm,
TikTok isn't that great either. So we don't post with intention there. So that's
mhm,
just, I mean, a lesson. I can
mhm,
get 32 million views on something on YouTube, and on TikTok, crickets. And it's because
mhm,
I'm not posting with intention there. So there's
mhm.
a lesson inside of that too.
It's a very good lesson, by the way. It's a very good lesson because a lot of times, again, we repurpose, but if you're not thinking about the specific channel, your views will reflect that. What I love though is that it's like YouTube, which is what a lot of people are trying. They're finding it hard to find the system and the algorithm to get YouTube to give them views, and you've really nailed it with that. So I love that. I think for me, TikTok, I often use it just to create a video on CapCut, which is owned by it's the same company, ByteDance, with
Yeah.
TikTok, just to get the video downloaded without the watermark,
Yeah.
right? Because they have such great templates. So same thing. I don't really do it with intention. And then one time, just a couple days ago, it was like all of a sudden 100,000 views, and I was like, "What?" Right? So again, it was,
Nice.
but by the way, it was the same thing. It was like a relatable meme, right?
Mhm.
And then anytime I get way more views than followers, that's what we consider going viral. It's always because it's some type of music that's trending there versus original content
Yeah.
up there. So I'm
Right.
glad I'm glad you touched on that too. And what is your favorite channel, by the way? What do you
My
like the
favorite
most?
My favorite living room channel, meaning the channel where I feel like I'm the most just comfortable and chill in myself,
Mm.
that's Facebook. I'm just an old lady,
Mhm.
and that's Facebook. But I really like Instagram. I really like Instagram. We've done some pretty fun stuff on there as well. And finding trending audio is a really
Mhm.
interesting thing. It's really
Mhm.
fun to it's probably my favorite part of the posting process is looking for the audio and kind of just finding things that I would not have naturally thought to choose a song like that, but when I see it trending and then I kinda listen to it and I think of the vibe of what's going on, I'm like, "Okay, this could work, this could work."
Mhm.
And then you test it as with
Mhm.
anything. You test it, you
Mhm.
try it, you goof off, you're okay to fail.
Mhm.
It's just all
Mhm.
of that stuff, so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about AI? Because I think there's a couple things that I like about you. You use AI, but you also think about the human element. And that I think is what's going to differentiate you over people who are just heavily relying on only AI. And I think there's a difference there. So I think
Yeah.
that's important to note. But what are the AI apps that you're using? What are some AI strategies that you're using either to find some of these things, or it's still all just human and intuition, women's intuition, shall we say?
It is not all human, girl. I can't even. I feel like there might be some people walking around in this world using lots of AI saying that it's them, and I'm just like, man, just admit it. So I, when you said like, what apps are you using? I kind of laughed a little bit because I'm like, gosh, I don't even know all of them. I
Mhm,
just kind
mhm,
of, and if we're being very honest here, which like I don't know how else to be, but um,
mhm, mhm.
like, I don't sometimes I don't even remember what I have subscriptions to. Like, every once in a while, I have to look at my credit card statement just to see, like, what do I have? Like, what
Mhm,
am I not
mhm.
using that I meant to use, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the thing. But, yeah, the things that I love, like, I'm still a ChatGPT girl at
Same,
the core of everything for,
same, same.
yeah, for ideation and for deep research. Holler. I mean,
Mhm,
deep
mhm,
research just changed the whole, what
mhm.
just happened? Um, that is wild. And uh, so ChatGPT, obviously, Claude, I'm in love with Claude. I think Claude might be quickly becoming one of my best friends because Claude
Mhm.
thinks I'm amazing. That's Claude will always compliment you, and I love
Mm.
Claude for that. And so that's
Brilliant on their part, brilliant.
right. I will go
Compliment the
back to
humans, they like that.
yes, they
Yeah,
like. They like when you
Yeah.
talk, guys. So I love Claude for its writing, you know.
Mm.
And I used to really use Perplexity a lot for research, but shucks, now that we have, I just said shucks out loud. Now that we have,
Now we know where she's from. Little roots there.
right, Midwest represent. Um, but now that we have ChatGPT with the deep research and we have Gemini and their research component of it as well,
Mhm.
um, it really has given Perplexity. Well, it's making Perplexity not as necessary. And I haven't really delved into the what is the new thing?
Oh, deep seek, deep seek.
Deep seek. That's it. I
Yep.
just imagine a whale. So I
Mhm.
haven't really I mess with it via Poe. Um,
Mhm.
but I haven't set up like an account or anything yet, but
Mhm.
I did mess with it via Poe. Um, and I haven't, and not enough to say anything about it. But yeah, those are I just kind of I use those and then we break on down into content strategy, captions,
Mhm.
um, what does the visual on this need to look like? But then being sure to also add your voice into it and say, I mean, obviously add your literary voice into it, but to add your flavor, your feel, your brand
Mhm. Mhm.
into it to say like,
Mhm.
well, this I wouldn't really talk about this, you know? So
Mhm.
like if it's being, poopy to somebody or whatever, I would say like, well, I need something where they're going to be funny or they're going to be nice because that's more me. I'm not going to do something negative. And so that's it's making sure that it understands all of those different things. And then also, I mean, for me, I don't keep, I mean, and I'm just kind of going off on a tangent here, but I don't keep conversations going too long, especially if it's like from a custom GPT. I make custom GPTs like they're going out of style.
Yep.
Um, but I don't keep the conversation going too long because, quite frankly, they really only have the memory for about 20 of those back and forths. And then
Mm.
it starts going
Hmm.
wherever it goes. So you need to kind of start it over again. But yeah, I can just totally took
That's where I find I often describe, GPT as a male because in the absence of facts, it makes stuff up. But then what you just described is when it becomes female and goes on a tangent because that's how our brains work, right? Where we have this cross brain here and it's
Yep.
just like, "Oh, that ping, it reminds me of this over here. That reminds me of this over here." I
Yep.
used to play tennis every week, every Wednesday with James Wedmore, up in Orange. Like we would meet in the middle. And one of the things he said, we would meet and then we would meet at the net. So we'd play a little bit, but then your your blood is flowing and you're talking and whatever. So we'd meet at the net and it's like come up with business ideas or oh well, let's do this on YouTube and let's do this on that.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he goes, oh. So there were times I can't tell you how many times he'd be like, oh, we're going to put a post-it on that and on that because we would go into tangents of different things. And women just think this way, right?
Yep.
We have the capacity to think of 10
And James.
and James, yes, at 10 different things at once, right? And then I loved how he described it as like a post-it note on it. And then we'll come back all of a sudden we'll weave all of a sudden back into this one post-it note. So one of the weaves we're going to go back to is search. So we talked about like you were talking about deep seek and deep search. So I want to talk a little bit about AI and how it's changed the game of keyword search because anybody who's thinking about keyword research back in the day, right, when it first started, is very different. So I can't tell you, Martha, how many people hire me in the beginning. It's like, okay, I want you to, I want to get top listings and
Yep.
keyword search. It's like, it's so different. And if you're not producing content like a freaking champ and a fiend this year, you're going to be irrelevant. That's my prediction in the
Yep.
years to come because
Yep.
deep search is not going to find you because you don't have content up there. A
Yep.
dinner conversation I had recently was how blogging and podcasting are almost making a major comeback. Like it kind of went a little irrelevant, and now it's a major comeback if you've
Yeah.
got a blog because you're basically feeding the search engines and AI and all of these AI tools. So I
Yeah.
know you have an opinion about that. So
I
what are
do.
your thoughts about how it's changed so people can take advantage of the new way of thinking
Yeah.
about search?
Yeah. Um, it's really funny to me because there's this term of AEO out
Mhm.
there, and that's
Mhm.
marketers made that, right? And
Yep.
so, uh, it's irrelevant. It's
Mm,
SEO. It's all SEO. It's always going to be SEO. And AEO being, for you guys watching, if you're not familiar, AEO being to show up in search on the AI engines, or whatever the different model is, the LLMs.
mhm,
So they act like there's something different that you need to do. You don't do anything different. You just do SEO the right way that you should have been doing it the whole time.
mhm,
There is one thing, and it's always been great for SEO, but people rarely did it. But
mhm.
now we have the capacity to do it really well, for SEO and AEO to be able to show up on the MLMs, the LLMs. Total different talk for a different day.
Mhm,
Um, so is the formatting. It's the formatting. So the people that are going to do really well for SEO, which then of course is for, the LLMs, are going to be the people that write like they're writing a term paper.
mm,
So
mm,
those, as long as you have, and it doesn't need to be every blog post,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
But
Yep.
you do need to have your core fundamental things that your business is known for, the things people would potentially search for about what you talk about what you do. You do need to at least have those set up also as blog posts that they're written like term papers. It's the way the format is set, right? It's the way that, you've got your main topic, and then it's broken down, and then you've got subtopics, and then you've got bullet points, and then you've got definitions, you've got
Mhm,
outside third party cited sources. It's term paper stuff,
mm.
right?
Yeah,
So
yes,
for a lot of
completely.
us, we're crazy. Like, for us as entrepreneurs, usually we are not the term paper writing folks. And so
But in this
so for
case,
us,
yeah,
yeah, for us, we're
yeah.
like, I'll write the social post,
Mhm, mhm,
but for those term paper, I mean, just have AI write it, right? And
mm,
then
mhm,
zhuzh it, tweak it to where it's not detectable, which you can tell, you can find
mhm,
that, and then go ahead and submit it, and call it a day, and then do that for, like I said, everything. And that's just one sort of, just like, gold nugget to be able to really
mhm,
rank. But then you've also got, of course, since the onslaught, what was it, 2012, 13, the onslaught of voice search, right? We need to have
mhm,
stream of consciousness search. So you need
mhm,
to have the stream of consciousness. I mean, this is nothing new that I'm saying. I'm
mhm.
just an SEO geek, but this is nothing new. But this is, you need to have, literal questions people are searching, stream of consciousness. What are the
Mhm,
words they're saying into their phone to look for a thing? Have something called that, and then
mhm,
answer the doggone question in more than 300 words.
mhm. Oh, one of the things I remember at an event, you would wake up every morning before everyone else and blog. And
Yeah.
it's something you said, you're like, "I love the writing aspect of it." So I feel like you never stopped blogging. So tell me a
No.
little bit about your process, your formula. What is Martha Krejci's process for blogging on a daily basis or on a regular basis that other people can't quite get their hands on?
Yeah. It's nothing is ever difficult. It's just, are you going to do it or not?
Mm,
That's really
mhm,
what it comes down to. I know my non-negotiables. I know what I'm
mm,
going to do.
yeah.
And so the world belongs to the people that are actually going to do what they say they're going to do.
Mm,
So I I know my content pillars, and then I also know the entire year of subjects that I'm going to talk about. Now, could things take precedence based on news, and if there's a hot take or something like that? Yeah, something could take precedence, but if nothing does, I still have my full year planned out. And so then that morning, that's where I just go, and write, and I free write the stuff, that whatever the topic is for that day. These days, it's not going down there and having a Word doc with a cursor blinking at me anymore.
mhm,
Now it's the ideation, right? Or
mm.
ideation. I don't ever know how to say that word. That I read it, but I don't know how to say it. Doesn't matter. But you have, Chat GPT actually give you the idea for how it should go, how it should flow, and then being able to fill in the blanks and write right on that. So
Mhm.
that's really that's what it looks like for me on a day-to-day basis. So that's not those
Mhm.
term paper things, right? But
Mhm.
on a day-to-day basis, you do need to be feeding the engine, so to speak, because Google does have a freshness score. It does
Mhm.
have a, you know, who's
Mhm. Yep.
giving me more info,
Yeah.
who's up
Yep.
to date, who do people care about when
Yeah.
people get to the site? Do they click away? You know, like what's relevant here? So yeah, all that stuff
Mhm.
matters.
So when you talked about ideation, let's go touch on that post-it. Is that what you're using GPT for to give you some ideas and then you riff on it with your
Yes.
human brain? And then
Yeah.
let's also talk about the custom GPTs. So a couple post-its in there.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I riff on it. So it
Mhm.
does, I mean, GPT is quite an amazing assistant
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
uh he jumps right into action. So I'll ask for ideas and then he'll be like, here's an idea. And then here's the whole thing fleshed out. And so he'll try to write it on his own. But what I do is I take the main points, you know, the main different points, because I already know how I feel about something. I already know what I'm gonna say about something, but really for because I have the topic already and I've already fed it to it. But um
Mhm.
really what
Mhm.
I'm looking for are like the, oh yeah, that's right. Like what you
Right.
said, I've probably already
Yep.
forgotten more than a lot of people know. And it's one
Yep.
of those, oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, I need to remember to say that. I need to remember
Mhm.
that. So that's what it is more than anything,
Yeah.
usually.
And then persona. So there's two final things I wanna ask you about: persona, your persona method, and thumbnails, whichever one you wanna tackle first. So you
Mm.
have absolutely created captivating thumbnails. Do you wanna give the viewers and listeners some ideas on what to do to make sure it's captivating and you're seen in search?
Yeah. I mean, the search part of it is less, well, I guess seen and search. That's the sentence. So yeah, seen.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm, mhm.
the the thumbnails are so embarrassing. I'm embarrassed at the ones that my team chooses,
Mm.
but they have me.
Where it's like, and
It's so bad. It's
yep,
so
but they
bad.
work, but they work. I'm
And
glad you're
there's
talking
one.
about this too, because it's like some of the I think this is what people resist. They're like, "Oh, I don't wanna do that," or, "Oh, it's cheesy," or, "Oh, that doesn't seem very natural," where often it's the wide-eyed, finger pointing, also yellow, which is part of your brand colors, which is fantastic. It's all of these things are like literally triggers that get people
Yes.
clicking on them, and we resist it because 'cause we're like, "Oh, again, I think you and I have had this conversation where I don't wanna be cringe, but at the same
Yeah.
time, if it works and you're doing whatever it is to get people in so that they can get your content, which is going to help their business, help their lives, help
Yeah.
transform them, then it's worth it. So it's almost a
Right.
psychological breakthrough that you've got to get past this. Because there are a couple that I know that I see and I was like, oh, she cringed at that one, but she's like, fine, it works. That I literally am seeing your expressions.
Yeah, that's what, and it is the what I suggest is, here's what my team did. They looked at my most my
Mhm.
most emotionally charged videos that I've done, right? Because I do
Yep.
video, usually I do them in the morning. We've been busy last week, but my most emotionally charged videos where I'm like, "Bah, da, da, bah," you know, like whatever. Um, and they just clip, clip, clip of all this, like, like my mouth is open, my, you know, I could have snot
Yes.
coming out of my nose. Like it's so
Yep.
horrific. It's the biggest train wreck. It's hard to go to YouTube to even see these things, but, but it
But
is what
effective.
stops people.
Effective. Yeah.
Yeah, it is what stops people because 'cause they're like, "Whoa, is she alright?" You know, and then they look at the channel.
So,
But
by the way,
that's
sometimes just not being normal is what gets you the clicks, right? Like, think
yeah,
about it. We don't stop for anything normal. We stop for something like flying through our frame of view, and we're like, "What's happening there?" And it's again, it's this reptilian brain that is captured. So, I think,
yeah,
in this aspect, it's getting over the psychological block that we have of like, "Oh, we want it," right? We've been taught to be normal, to fit in, but that's
be
not what you wanna do
perfect.
on YouTube. That's not what you wanna do on social, right? When you're trying
Yeah,
to get
we've
attention.
been
So
taught to be
mhm.
perfect. Um,
Yeah.
another thing that another thing that was problematic for me whenever I started was that um I actually, can you believe this? Whenever I first started doing videos, I would have a notebook and I would have, get this, every freaking word I was going to say was on my notebook. And I would like look down and look back up and look down and look back up and look. And that was me on video. And
Mm,
nowadays, I mean, I barely
mm,
have a title anymore, but you work yourself into talking so much about your content that you can riff around whatever. And so
mhm,
you can eventually just your I would actually suggest starting out this way where you just have bullet points and you're like,
mhm,
okay, here's how I stay on
mhm,
topic. You know,
mhm.
I should probably do that because I got ADHD and I end up all over the place. But you know, I mean, it
By the
happens.
way, you're not alone. I have I'm
See?
like, I wanted to make sure I want to make sure I talk about persona, custom GPT, so that if I don't remember, like my human brain, well, my pad will remind me. So again, old school.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're not so abnormal after all. Or maybe
See?
you are. We're just weird together. But yeah,
I'm good
yeah.
with that. I'm good
And I'm
with that.
glad, by the way, this is really important. I'm glad you brought this up because it's part of the content production where people are like, are you supposed to read a script? Because I've seen YouTubers and maybe like 10 years ago when all of a sudden, like, a new crop of YouTubers were coming out. And I was like, wow, that's so polished. And she's so like, boom, 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 boom. It's almost like she's reading a paragraph or something very, very finely tuned and crafted. And I was like, I was a little intimidated because I've never been that way, right? I riff, you and I will riff
Yeah.
because it's stream of conscious. Oh, you just triggered into a thought. Let me share this tip. Let me share
Yeah.
this tip, right? But I've seen that, and then I think other people get intimidated by that. But to me, the best ones are the conversations that people are having, and it's also the easiest way for people to not get nervous and scared because you go, all right, well, if you're just having a conversation with Martha. I mean, you and I have gone on a lot of these different retreats and events, and we're like,
Yeah.
okay, we are at the end of it. You, me, Rachel, will have like our little powwow in the hotel room, and we just start
Yeah.
talking, and we're like, we should be recording this. This is good.
Seriously.
People need to know this, right? And
Yeah.
that's the stuff that you're not nervous when you're just talking to a friend. So when
Yep.
you are broadcasting, you got to stop thinking broadcast. You got to think about, just if you're talking to a friend and you're talking to them eye to eye, you don't have notes, you don't have something prepared, right? And no one gets nervous going out to dinner with a good friend. And I feel like if you think about it that way, podcasting or any type of video content creation or social media, that's where the fear will be obliterated. Is that like when you went from, okay, I had all this in notes and now I just have conversations? What was the transformation for you? Because again, you've been nonstop creating, which is what
Yeah.
we want, right? The consistency.
Yeah. It's it it takes all of the pressure off. It
Hmm.
I don't have to when you're trying to stay on task with something like that,
Hmm.
it takes your charisma out of things.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and and that's I mean, I got some charisma. And so I don't want that taken out. That's
Yeah.
actually a huge deterrent. That's a big
Hmm.
problem for my business if I can't be charismatic on video,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it also allows people to see your expertise.
Hmm.
Whenever you can sit and you can talk about it like this,
Hmm.
that is
Hmm.
showing expertise like nobody's business because you
Yeah.
don't need to go look
Yep.
something up. You don't need to
Yep.
go like, consult chat GPT or whatever. If you can just, if you know your stuff so well on a cellular level that you
Yeah.
can just sit and vibe, then
Hmm.
it's apparent. It's
Yes.
obvious.
Yes, that's actually a very good point because you're basically using content media in order to showcase your expertise, and that is the best way to do it.
Yes.
By the way, you brought up a point, and I do wonder if interviews will ever be the same again in the future, where it's like there have been conversations or questions people are asking. It's like, oh, can I use my GPT for the answer? And I feel like we're going to be, and we're going to have a generation of being very dependent on GPT, very dependent on AI. I have one friend who won't use the Waze app. She's like, no, I'm forcing my brain to like know how to get from point A to point B. I'm like, but you don't know
Oh,
where the police are to avoid them. And you don't know where this is. And that is like, or the detours, like Waze AI does help us in so many ways, but she's trying to
yeah.
exercise her brain so that it doesn't become
God
like stagnant.
bless.
So
I'm
yeah, there's
I'm not
something to be
that.
said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
we're
not
just so dependent on it.
go back to Maps or MapQuest or,
Or the
printing
ones
out
like
you ever
this.
print
Do you
out
remember
those
these? This
directions?
shows our age. Oh, on page 46 is when you turn the corner. You're like, "What?
Yeah,
What?"
right.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
So
don't even
AI
know
has
exit
so
numbers. Yeah.
that's actually a good question for us to kind of wrap this up about. What about anything that about AI that makes you nervous? I don't want to say scares you, but what about AI in the future makes you a little nervous? Gives you pause?
Yeah. I don't think it's AI. I think it's people. I
Mm.
think it's people using it.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't think that it's actually the tool.
Mm.
The gun isn't the problem. It's the people using the gun. Although I didn't mean to just go into all of that, but um, it's there's it's the
Yeah.
people that are going to use something maliciously or to use it for negative intent or
Mhm.
um, you know, I we're in a very exciting time right now. I was talking to my husband about this the other day because I was like, the world really does belong to
Mhm.
those of us that can use our imagination and
Mhm.
really just go do the darn thing because it's we can do
Mm.
almost anything now. And
Mhm.
but how many people have full access to their imagination to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there's so much
Mm.
mindset stuff wrapped up in there, whereas I'm
Yeah.
like, let's go. But also on the other side of the coin, that's
Mhm.
me. But there's also other people that have full
Mhm.
access to their imagination that are potentially going to use it in a way that isn't the best for the world, the planet, the people on it, that sort of
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that gives me pause. But uh, ultimately, there's going to be that in anything with
Mhm.
any tool,
Yep.
with
Yep.
anything at all ever,
Yeah.
there's always going to be that. I mean, we had the scares of the nuclear war, like in the 60s when there was that whole like the
Mhm.
nuclear stuff going on, right? And
Yeah.
people probably had some big fear around that at that point in time. And while that stuff still exists, there doesn't seem to be as much fear around it right now. And so I think maybe it's just I don't know, it just is what it is there's
Yeah.
always going to be something to be scared of if you
Yeah.
want.
100%. And I think for us as business owners, the people who stand still in the fear, it's kind of like with TikTok. So many people were like, I'm not going to use it. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I guess it is a thing. People are using it and they were behind. So it's the same thing I see with AI. And by the way, this is the same thing with YouTube. 20
Yeah.
years ago, whatever it was, when it first launched, before it was even owned by Google, people were like, oh, I don't know. And then you've seen this, right? 10 years later, like, oh, our podcast's still relevant. And then 10 years later, Joe Rogan comes up and is the highest paid podcaster. So it's like those fears are the things that trip you up and are going to thwart your future success. So I'm glad
Yeah.
you brought that up. Um,
Yeah.
I, I I do want to bring up the persona method because it's brilliant. I definitely want to bring you back on AI and chill on a regular basis. It's definitely going to be one of our longer form podcasts. But like kind of quickies, we're going to have you on some of the latest tools that are happening. But before we get into the persona method, I feel like you're the inventor of this. I know a lot of people think they have, but
Mhm.
Martha's really the originator, and the formula that you have is great. So maybe a little bit about how they can dive into persona method on their own, or again, do more with you, follow you. Where can people find you? Let's talk about that before the persona method. So where can they find you? What's the best website to get people some, say, free information and follow you and learn from you, and then grab one of your courses that you have on your programs?
Yeah. So my website is withmartha.com. I didn't put my last name in there because you can't spell it and I know it, and that's okay. So it's
I
with
can
Martha.
now.
Well, not I mean
Oh, yeah,
you're
yeah.
royal.
Yes, yes.
You're like, I can now. I look
So
at me.
it's
I just
with
did that.
Martha?
Yeah,
With
withmartha.com.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
so that's my website, and that's kind of a hub for everything. So I have an agency, I have courses I go everywhere from do it yourself courses to memberships to being able to be in the community. I do monthly events, 3-day events that drill down on concepts and topics that every business owner needs to know. And so yeah, like I all the way into my team actually doing your stuff for you. So
Mhm.
that's my jam.
Yeah, I like it because you've got a range, right? Of like, hey, here's almost the done with you with your courses, or hey, if someone's like hands off, I'm a business owner, I'm too busy, have
Yeah,
someone do it for me. You do have
yeah,
an agency and a team that does it.
yes,
So yeah, so talk a little bit, because in one of your courses you have this incredible persona method. You've really perfected it. So let's talk a little bit about what is a persona for people who don't know what that is, and then a
yeah,
little bit about what you've kind of dialed in magically.
yeah. I mean, it's essentially, um, it's everything about who your person is in your business is wanting to reach out to, right? So I guess let's say it this way: most business owners, whenever I talk to them in the very beginning, they'll say, in the very beginning of when I talk to them, they'll say, I'll say, well, who is your audience, right? Like, who are your people? And then you'll get that glazed over look, right? Or they'll say everyone,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Because everybody needs this and
Yes. Oh
whatever.
my
And
gosh.
it's the
You're
kiss of
this is a good topic, by the way. I'm glad you're bringing this up, because
death.
people are like, "Oh, well, I serve everyone from like 2-year-old to 82." It's like, "No, focus on one
Yeah.
group, one group." So
Just
this
because you
is good.
can doesn't mean you
Yeah.
should, right?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
it's we're not saying your baby's ugly. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're saying that
Or or
you
or
can,
maybe.
or I mean,
Or
I didn't
maybe.
say that, but and you can always, like, whenever I tell people, like, pick a person, they you can sense the heart palpitations, because they're like, well, what about everybody else?
Mhm, mhm.
And ultimately, everybody else is still going to, I mean, those other people still come into your stuff anyway, and you can still have,
Mhm,
sub
mhm.
personas as well, and you can still have marketing channels that still serve those sub personas, but you're going to
Yep.
have a main person, and
Yes.
that main person is going to be, your best client, your best
Mhm.
person you have ever worked with before, and you're going to drill down on who that person is. I actually call it bat signal, and the reason that
Mhm,
I call it
mhm.
bat signal is because, oh my word, my dogs. The reason that I call it
They're
bat,
like, "Bats? Bats?
yeah, the dogs
Is
are
it dinner
like,
time?"
um, the reason I call it bat signal is because basically what you're doing is you're taking what you do, right? And then you're putting it out into the world almost like a bat signal. And then all of your people are going to respond to that message. They're going to say, oh my gosh, she's here for me, or he's here for me. That's exactly what I need. And then they're going to come to you like a moth to the flame. And then,
Mhm,
but it's their signal. It's their signal to then come to you. But
mhm,
you can't do that if you don't know who they are,
mhm,
because they're
mhm.
not going to respond to generalized messaging. They're not
Right.
going to respond to, I mean, whenever you see a company that, I don't know, I'm working with a HVAC company right now out of
Mhm,
Tampa, and uh, you can't just say, we do HVAC. You can't just say that. You have
mhm.
to be able to, like, to speak to the person that's about to buy your services, right? And 9 times out of 10, it's the wife, by the way. And most of
Yeah.
the guys
Yep.
think it's the husband. So that's your first mistake. Um,
Yeah.
and so, you really just,
Yeah.
once you have drilled down into what that person wants, what they're looking for, the mistakes they've made before, how they
Mhm.
feel about themselves, what they're afraid of. And it sounds so like so deep and almost silly to do that much research on somebody. But when your entire business depends on it,
Yep.
then
Yep.
it's not as silly, right? It's
Yes.
just not
Yes.
as silly. And so
Yep.
that's kind of just an overarching
Yeah.
idea of what we get into.
Well, and I think you've proven that this is important based on the views and the people commenting and the engagement and the people that have joined your tribe because
Yeah,
of this. I think it's paying attention to that core message and who the person is, so you're able to speak and relate to them and be relatable because you have a core group. So I
I
think
see.
that speaks to itself. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time. We'll definitely, if you're willing, we'll bring you back on AI and Show
Perfect.
podcast that we're kicking off. We'll maybe dive into one specific AI topic for a future conversation. But this conversation of what works, what goes viral, social media, is it so relevant? All of that. I'm like, Martha is so good at this. She dominates in this. She is the boss lady. So let's bring you on. So I love that we were able to just kind of hop on today and do this. But yeah,
Thank
if you're willing
you.
to come back as a frequent guest, we'll have you. We'll bring Rachel. We'll bring Molly. Maybe we'll have a little foursome chat about
Oh,
AI and social media, and bring all the people who are just killing it in social together. So that might be a fun little future chat. So
that would be seriously so fun. You know how
mhm.
fun that would be. That would be
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
all right, I'll reach out to them and we'll try to get the four of us together on a chat about, again, a lot of these up and coming topics. So thank you, Martha. Go ahead
Yeah.
and follow Martha. Go ahead and go again, Krejci, Krejci. Pronounced like great chi, like you have great energy. That's how I remember how to pronounce your name. And then withmartha.com. So you can follow her and stalk her, like her stuff, comment on it, subscribe, do all the things, right?
All of them.
But yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. You are killing it, crushing it. You are the boss lady.
Oh,
Mwah.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, guys.
Ciao, ciao.